Well, today we are tossing the canister stove in the trash to talk about why I have enjoyed alcohol stoves so much recently on my backpacking trips that I might only ever take alcohol stoves for the future. I mean, this is metaphorically speaking, not necessarily the case because, man, I enjoy using different systems and such all the time on my backpacking trips. So, no, I will never say goodbye to the canister stove. However, as I have dug into alcohol systems over the past year, I have thoroughly enjoyed what alcohol provides as a cooking option of boiling water out in the backcountry that has kind of made me step aside a little bit from the canister stove. So let's quickly talk about canister systems and the pros and cons versus an alcohol, and then we're going to talk about all things alcohol stoves. So with this system, this is so simple and basic. If you've never seen a canister stove before, they are very simple, where you've got your stove and then you buy these metal canisters of an isobutane fuel mix, and then your stove screws onto that, and I open up the gas, give that a click to light it, and boom, you've got yourself a working stove that is reliable, consistent, it's stable on this base, and it's just a plug and play, easy thing to do. The biggest downside when you're comparing this to alcohol is that I am using this big bottle, even though it's not that big, but this bottle of fuel that is more fuel than I would ever need for a weekend trip. I may only use an eighth to a quarter of the fuel of this canister for the meals that I cook on a weekend backpacking trip. Longer trips, that's a different condition or a different situation, but this is more weight and fuel than you would need for a backpacking trip. And we've all been in that situation where we've used the same canister for several trips and it gets down and we give it a little shake and you're like, there's still fuel in there, but how long is this gonna last? And you end up carrying a second fuel canister because of it. You don't wanna waste the fuel and throw it away and just open a brand new canister. Like, you wanna empty this, but you're like, I don't know how long this is gonna last. I might as well bring another canister just in case. And then you never end up using that second canister. Like, we've all been there. Raise your hand in the comments and tell me that you have done that, because if you say that you haven't done that, you're a liar. Canister stoves are great. They're simple. They can be very lightweight, but they come in lots of different options, and they are a solid option. But when it comes to alcohol and using an alcohol stove to save as much weight as possible in your backpacking system, this allows you to accomplish that. And speaking of fuel specifically, not carrying more than you would need for a weekend trip, I can get a very small, basic little bottle like this and fill it with denatured alcohol or yellow bottle heat that I can get from a gas station. So fuel is very cheap, very accessible in any place that you would be. And I can take only the amount of fuel that I would absolutely need for my trip. So if I'm cooking 5 meals and I need to boil water for 5 meals, then I'll take about 5.5 to 6 ounces of fuel only, because one of the downsides of a alcohol stove is this could be on an uneven surface and then it falls over. I've got alcohol spilled all over the place. Major bummer. You have to be super careful that once you light this, that you are in a very stable environment, that this is not going to tip over and then create a huge fire that you can't manage and take care of. And I've got different size fuel bottles that allow me to take as much as 8 ounces with this big Vargo bottle, or as little as like 3.5, 4 ounces with this bottle. So lots of good options when it comes to that. I can also, most of the time, get everything with my system into smaller pots. So like this Toke's 550 milliliter little pot, I can put my entire alcohol stove system in there, my windscreen and the lighter and just everything that I would need into there without having to take up more bulk and space in my pack. Now with a little 550 pot like this, I can either get the canister in there or the stove in there. It's very difficult to get both in there. And often, you're not gonna need to boil more than 2 cups of water depending on what type of meal in a bag you're using. So a 550 milliliter is gonna be plenty of space, and if I can put everything in there, regardless of what stove it is, like this Toaks siphon or the Graham Weenie Pro that I've got here, or the Trail Designs Kojin, or little DIY stoves like this, man, I can just put all of the stuff in there, and it's very, very lightweight, small package. That is a huge, huge benefit to the alcohol system. Now let's talk about kind of the difference between alcohol stoves and alcohol burners. Now this Toaks siphon, this would be considered a burner, and this Graham Weenie Pro from Batch Stoves, this would be considered a stove. And the difference is that when I place my pot on top of this Toaks siphon, it's going to snuff out the flame. So I have to have some kind of pot stand for this to go around, or inside I should say, that allows me to put my pot on top of, so that I've got the proper amount of space between the top of the stove and the bottom of the pot, so that I get a good boil time and everything. Plus a windscreen is going to help keep the flame from blowing all over the place and wasting unnecessary fuel. But with this little tiny Graham Weenie Pro that is super lightweight, I mean all of these are super lightweight, this is a stove with the burner or the flames coming out around the outside of it, so I can literally put the pot straight on top of that. Ooh, stay. And I don't have to have a windscreen or a pot stand for me to boil water on top of this. So it minimizes and reduces the amount of bulk and things that I have to carry with me. So I can do that. I can take a small piece of tin foil that is basically gonna weigh nothing and wrap that around it, and I've got a super simple, basic, easy, and quiet, a very quiet system that is easy to manage and handle in the backcountry. I mean, let's listen to this. Ah! This is one of the things that I dislike the most about canister stoves is you light this thing and for the next 5 or 10 minutes, you're trying to enjoy yourself out in the backcountry, and you've got 3 or 4 of these if you're out with a group, and it's a noisy, noisy time when you're doing your cooking. Not that big of a deal, but it is something to consider. But alcohol stoves, they're just awesome, and the options are really cool because you've got different kinds of systems, like this Kojin stove, for example. This is a no spill kind of stove where I literally have this material on the inside that's like a fiberglass type of material, and I can pour my alcohol right into that, and then it doesn't dump out. But as soon as I light it, check that out, then it's all good. But it doesn't leak out, which is really nice. So I can even save some of the fuel that way with this particular stove, which is really nice. And this comes from Trail Designs. This is the Caldera Cone, which is a very slick, very cool system that fits specifically to the different pots that you might take with you on your trip. So this one is fit specifically to my 550 milliliter. It just creates this awesome amount of space to protect from wind, and it's the right height from the bottom of the stove, and it makes it really easy to manage with a good stable base. So you're very unlikely to spill anything with this kind of system, where I might have even this bigger 900 milliliter pot on top of a canister stove, and I'm sitting it on top of a rock. Check out the height on that. That is not going to be overly stable when you find yourselves in different types of conditions. And if you've ever had a pot fall over, sliding off of a stove, man, that is devastating. It's just the worst. I hate it when that happens. With the various different options that you have in alcohol systems, they're just fun. And it makes boiling water for the simple meals that you take with you into the backcountry kind of a fun thing to do when you're out there, because you have exactly what you need. You've got something very simple, it's quiet, and it's just nice. You don't have to worry about moving parts or anything. Like literally this weighs virtually nothing as a piece of titanium or a very light piece of aluminum, and for this to break you'd have to like crush it. Curious what your preference is, if it is an alcohol system and what stove you are using, or if your preference is a canister stove. Let me know down in the comments which you prefer and why. I'd love to have a discussion about it with you. Thank you so much for watching today. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. Hope you guys have an awesome day. Catch you on the next video. See you later.